Hi, I'm Rachel with Patterns and Pixels Canada, and on today's video, I finally open week 1 of my Winter Mystery Quilt from Threads That Bind. Let's get started. Okay, I've got my bag of the Winter Mystery 2023 from Threads That Bind, and I've got my laptop with the first week of instructions out and ready to go. But let's start with looking inside. I'm very excited. Okay, we've got, oh, I see. Okay, so the label on that says week 7, week 8, week 6, week 5, week 4. This is such a tease. Why are they all wrapped up? Week 3, week 2, week 1. When I picked this bag up from the store, the employee who handed it to me very specifically handed it to me and said, "Don't peek." Have you ever had somebody like hand you a present and then tell you you're not allowed to open it? Oh. Okay, so they're not all fabric. I mean, I think there's fabric in each of the bags, but there's lumpy things. Hard plastic. I have no idea. See, that might be a spool of thread, but that one, that's a weird shape. I hope nothing in here is breakable as I'm squishing it. Well, this feels like the letter Y. What sewing tool is shaped like a Y? Oh. This doesn't count as peeking, right? I haven't opened the bags. This is a rectangle. There's not pins or anything. This has got a big, I think there's like a notebook or something. Like a pad of paper, it's quite big. Okay. Let's look what is in week 1. I'm not going to be able, how many weeks did I say there were? Were there 8? Yeah, so for 8 weeks I have to sit here and not open things. That is such a tease. Okay, week 1. Ooh. Frixion clicker, erasable. It's embarrassing that I can't click it. Oh, it's the... All right, I know this might sound a little, I don't know, something. I've never had a pen that clicks with this part. It's always been the top. That's kind of cool. Okay, so I get a pen and 2 different shades of blue fabric and white fabric. And the instructions for this week, they talk about light blue, medium blue, white. I have to do some cutting, obviously. And it does say, there's a part that says label the remaining fabrics with color and size. They will be used in upcoming weeks. Okay, so it looks like I'll do some prep today. And I'm using these to make half square triangles, which I will then use to make 2 different blocks. Total of 5 blocks, but in 2 different orientations. Oh no, my apologies, there'll be 10 blocks, 5 of each. Okay, so I'm going to start with giving my fabrics a little bit of a press, and then I'll get everything cut to the measurements that they have provided, get everything labeled, and I think the extra ones, label the remaining fabrics with color and size, they will be used in upcoming weeks. The extra ones I'm going to put back into my week 1 bag, so that in upcoming weeks when I'm looking for them, I know that they're in here. And then we can get started with making half square triangles. I've got all of my pieces cut out. I have 30 white squares, 20 of the light blue, and 10 of the dark blue. And then the next set of instructions just goes through asking me to make half square triangles out of everything. Before I moved over here, I had a quick little Google about this pen. So I found the reason why it's the clip that is the part that pushes the pen up and down rather than the base is because that is the eraser. I didn't realize that. So I'm sure there's some of you out there who have used a flicker pen before and you know this. I haven't, and I didn't. So that end bit is the eraser, and the reason why they made this the clicking part is because while you're erasing, they didn't want you to accidentally click the pen. I also had a look that I could use this on fabric, especially the white. I was a little nervous, and it said it's absolutely fine, and it's one of the pens that can be removed through the heat of your iron. Or washing. I have had marking tools before that if you iron and it's still on your fabric, it actually sets it into the fabric. So it's good that the iron won't do that with this. You just want to make sure that you're finished with your markings, I guess, before you iron it and then lose your markings. They have suggested using this to make your half square triangles. And I'm sure you've all seen this method before where you get your 2 pieces of fabric, right sides together, draw a line down the center, and then stitch on either side, voila, you get 2 of them. However, I have stuck a piece of green masking tape, painter's tape, onto my sewing machine, so that way I don't need to draw all the lines. I can just make sure that my point for my first square is lining up with the needle, and that the bottom of it is lining up with my painting tape, my painter's tape. And the only reason I've chosen to do that is because I have 30 white pieces of fabric, which means I need to sew 30 of these squares together, which means I would have to draw 30 lines. And I don't want to draw 30 lines. I'm using painter's tape because it's what I have. I know that you can also get tape that has, like, it's specifically made for sewing machines and it has like lines down it for stitching. And I'm sure it works lovely. I just don't have any. Just be mindful. I do keep saying painter's tape. Don't just use regular masking tape because it'll leave a sticky residue on your machine, which you can wash off, but then it's something else you have to do. And if you're like me, you have enough things in your days that you have to do. So I'm now going to sew all of these together so that I end up with my half square triangles. And then I will get them cut apart and I can look at the 2 different block designs that they want me to make with them. Let's get sewing. I've got my 30 squares sewn up. I did them as a chain on the machine. So that's all the light blue and the white. There's 20 of those ones. And then I've got the medium blue and the white, 10 of those ones. The next thing I will be doing is cutting each of the blocks apart and then cutting a center line on there so that I can open them up into half square triangles. And that obviously will be 1, and then the other side of the square will give me another 1. So I'll get double for each of my rows. I'll cut them all apart, I'll press everything, and then I'll come back to the table and start making the pattern that they've asked me to make. There are my half square triangles. sewn together and pressed. Let me just fix the brightness on the camera. I decided to press them with the seam open because it was getting bumpy in the center here when I went to try and trim them down to size. So here's one that I've already done. And I like patterns like this that have you make your blocks a little bit bigger than you need and then trim them down. And that way you're less likely to have things that aren't the right size. So for this step, I'd like to use a ruler that has a diagonal line. And because they're such small squares, definitely rulers that have some grips on them. You can do it without the grips, but you run the risk of ruler sliding. I need to trim these down to 3.5 inches. And I do have a 3.5 inch ruler. I prefer a bigger ruler. It gives me more to hold on to while I'm working. I could come along and put a piece of tape at the 3.5 inch mark. This ruler actually comes with a little label showing you where it is. But I find for just the few that I'm doing, I don't need to do that. If I was doing a lot of blocks, then maybe I would have. For this, I will put my ruler onto my half square triangle block. Right now I'm looking at that diagonal line and making sure it's lining up along the seam of my two pieces. Once I have that sorted, now I'm coming to look at that 3.5 inch mark, and I can see that it's well within where it needs to be. And so I can trim that side first. And then I've used my mat that turns so that I don't have to pick up my block and move it. You can obviously trim and move your blocks, and that's fine, but it helps to be more accurate if you can finish the entire trimming process without moving your blocks. And so now that I've got two of my sides cut, when I come to do the last two sides, I'm really looking at that corner to make sure the 3.5 inch corner mark is right on the corner of my block. My diagonal line is still on my seam. Do that one. And once more. And then there we have a perfect 3.5 inch block. I'll need to cut out the rest of my medium blue blocks in the same size, and then once I have pressed and trimmed the light blue, I can go on to the next step. There are all my blocks made and ready to go, my medium blue and my light. And now I just need to sew them together following the instructions. I'm just going to move these off to the side. They want 2 of the light and 2 of the medium for the first block. And they want it to come around like that. There we go. Okay, so I need to make 5 blocks that look like that. And the other one, okay, the other one again is 2 of each. 2 of each. Okay, this time the blues are all pointing in. Okay. So there's block 1 of the mystery quilt and block 2. I need to make 5 blocks of each, and then this week's mystery challenge is finished in time for next week. There's the blocks all sewn. I now have 5 blocks that look like this, and 5 that look like this, and quite a few of my half square triangles left over. For these ones, the instructions say to label them with color and size because they'll be used in upcoming weeks. I think what I'll do is I'll put that on a post-it note, and then I'm going to pop them right back into my week 1 bag so that when I'm looking for them later on, I know where they are. And then the instructions also say to label these blocks. So this one is block 1, and this one's block 2. And I think I'll do that. Yeah, they're an okay size. I'll put them right back into the bag, and that way I can keep everything all together. If you have enjoyed watching me create these blocks for our Winter Mystery Quilt, then you know what to do. Hit that like, subscribe, and bell notification. Bye.